Hello and welcome to A Spot of Positivity. My name is Rosalie Barton and I like to have a spot of positivity with you to bring a little joy to your day. And right now I've been talking a very long drawn out time on about a little drama that was my son going to the hospital, his diabetic coma episode, and what it was like for us. And I think I'm on part 5, at least that's what I'm going to put in the description. So we had quite a bit of drama around the whole thing, and David had been in a coma from the Wednesday all the way through. It was on the weekend now, so we're on like Saturday, Sunday time. Talked a little bit. He was starting to make little moaning noises. They dropped his sedation, and there we were, and it was cool. I mean, we're starting to put music on. My husband used to put music on for him that he knew he'd like. He knew he'd enjoy, and so he was kind of responding a bit to that. We weren't expecting everything to happen at once. I was expecting stuff to happen. I was expecting to have our son back completely and everything like that, but not necessarily very dramatically. But it was the Monday morning. We'd had the weekend. We were feeling hopeful. It wasn't quick, but it was hopeful. And we always called the hospital in the morning, because we weren't able to get into the hospital till about 11 in the morning. And we called and asked how he was doing, because it's a long time to wait till 11. So I'm going to sneeze in a second here. You're going to have to excuse me. It's my foolproof no sneeze. Oh, excuse me. Hope nobody got any of those germs. So what happened was that the hospital, we called the hospital, they said, oh, David's, he's talking now. He's fine, he's talking. We thought, sorry, what did you just say? Oh, he's talking. Okay, great. So we hung up. That sounded nice, but what was meant by that? Was he saying like short little monosyllabic words? Was he quoting Shakespeare? I mean, somewhere in between probably. Anyway, that sounded really hopeful, but because we had the language barrier as well. I mean, they were speaking English to us, but you have to understand the hospital, the main language is Greek, and a lot can be lost in translation. So we thought, we'll just see what happens when we go there. So my shift was the early shift, so my husband Chris dropped me off, and it's like you have to walk up to the second level, and believe me, I was walking the steps quite a lot because that's my little exercise. Up to the second level, lots of steps, and there's a little chapel, and then you went into a little room that was the kind of parents' waiting room, and then you had to ring the bell to get in the ICU, and then you wait and see if they'd answer. Sometimes they'd answer, sometimes they'd say, no, you have to wait. So I was quite desperate to go in and see what was happening with David, if he's okay, what's happening, and all that. And I got let in. Oh, yes, come in. So got let in right away. And there he was at the far left-hand corner of the ward. And I saw a nurse bending over him. And then I heard her say, there's your mom now. And I thought, well, that is talking differently to David than he would have talked yesterday. He hadn't been really responding very much the day before, except for moans and groans, the odd slightly opened eyes, all that kind of thing had been happening. In fact, I'll just backtrack and say he cried a little bit. He wasn't speaking yet, but he cried. He was responding, and I was so encouraged by that cry. Anyway, this is what I was coming in. I didn't know what was going to happen, but they were talking to him like they were having a conversation. So I was really excited about this because he was engaging, obviously. And when I went over, the first thing I heard as I neared it was, is it okay if I give my mom a hug? And of course, my heart melted. Yes. She said, Yes, of course it's okay if you give your mom a hug. And you have to also understand this is COVID. This is like not too many hugs happening. So it was a valid question. But I went over there and I gave him a biggest hug. Just held him for a while, and it was so, so nice. And then we started having a conversation. He was not quite sure of the time. He said, so essentially, I've been sleeping for 5 days and now I'm in a different city and all this. Anyway, I must say at that moment, I thought I better call my husband and let him know what's happening. And that's when he said this. So essentially, Dad, what I've been sleeping for a while. So he's seeing his dad on the screen and he's talking. And I think it's at that point we just thought, well, we have our son back. He's talking like words like essentially, which isn't like no great word, but it was not like, hi, Dad. It was like totally fully engaged, long sentences, interaction, proper cognition, proper communication, all that kind of thing. And we were so delighted. And yeah, then he talked for a few minutes to his dad, and then I hung up, and then we went on. And David asked for his phone right away, of course. I think that's when we came in. He's asking for his phone. And I had brought a charger and everything because at the time, at the beginning, we thought he would wake up the next morning. And he hadn't woken up the next morning. So everything was there. His phone was there. But to pick up his phone was like, he might have been picking up a 10 kilo dumbbell in one hand. It was so heavy to him. He could hardly pick it up. It was like his muscles hadn't been used for so long, and everything was difficult. Pressing the buttons on well, they're not even buttons, but texting and all that kind of stuff was really difficult. He didn't have like his motor skills or anything they weren't there yet. It wasn't all there, but he was all there. He was maybe he was saying some things that maybe didn't completely make sense. He was a little bit fuzzy, and his eyesight was a little bit fuzzy. And I was a bit concerned about that to begin with. Anyway, we had a very good day, and it was so nice to communicate and explain stuff to him. He was overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed by all the like letters, texts, voice messages, video messages. So you have to understand for him, I keep on saying, so you have to understand. You do have to understand. For him, he's been asleep all this time. It's the people around him, his friends, his family, anywhere in various different countries in the world who've been thinking about him, praying for him, and all that kind of thing. They're the ones who've been going through the high drama. For him, he was just sleeping. So it must have been really overwhelming for him to think how many people loved him and were thinking about him, and yet he hadn't been like lying there worried. He did say that he remembered a bit of being unable to open his eyes fully, like he was so tired. Even doing that was a huge effort. He was frustrated with his body that he couldn't just get up and walk down the hall, which he thought he should do. It felt like he could, and when he actually tried to do stuff like that, it was a huge effort even getting up. But when he was still sleeping and still sedated and all that kind of thing, he felt that weariness. He had a sense of people around him sometimes talking. He had some memories of some things, but not clear. And certainly the time wasn't there yet, the kind of timeline, what happened. He had no memory of anything. Of everything concrete. So for us, the drama had been on our part. But he started to look at some texts and some things that he received. So that's where we were. And that was a really, really, really good Monday. So I will continue this story next time. And thanks so much for watching A Spot of Positivity. And if you like this, then like and subscribe.